Now I would like to introduce our speaker for today, Kate Daleiden. She has been at Kenyon since 2019, serving in multiple fundraising roles. She has an MBA and the Chartered Advisor in Philanthropy designation, which she uses to design individual gift plans in partnership with our donors. And when she is not working, she is busy chasing her four boys, 9 and under, or cheering for Pittsburgh sports teams. Thank you so much, Kate. We appreciate your time today.
Well, hi, everyone. I'm excited to see you all. Several of you I know, and those of you I don't know, I will look forward to chatting with you today. Let me share my screen, which is always a terrifying moment. Can you all see my slide deck? Yes. Okay, great. So my goal today is to start a conversation about building your Kenyon legacy. Like Shana said, I've worked here for 6 years now, and I really enjoy this work. So hopefully that shines through. I will welcome your questions as we go through. So our agenda today, if you're just thinking about options for how to make a gift, we have information for you. If you already have a plan in place but want to understand what kind of impact you can have at Kenyon or want ideas about how to direct your gift, we've got information for you. So I like to give this agenda just to give sort of a heads up for what we're going to do today. So first, we're going to define what planned giving is. Everyone thinks this is just a gift that's transferred at death, which is a huge part of planned giving. But spoiler alert, that's not the whole picture. So I'm going to give you some other information about that. We're going to talk about why these gifts are so important, both to Kenyon and to the donor. Then we're going to talk a little bit about some of the folks who have made these kinds of gifts. I've anonymized their stories, but I'm going to share real donor stories. And then I'm going to share some frequently asked questions and leave plenty of time for your questions. I belong to these national plan giving groups, and in all of our sessions when we're doing training, they say, answers do not constitute legal advice. Please consult qualified counsel. So I will echo that and share it with all of you. Depending on what state you are, there may be special nuances or things like that. But what I'm trying to do today is just plant some seeds for you and give you some ideas that you might pursue with me or someone else in the future. So what is planned giving? Like I said, these are gifts that can be designated from wills or trusts and will be transferred at death. That's a big chunk of them. But these can also be outright gifts that are given now or passed at death using assets like stocks, bonds, business interests. DAFs is donor advised funds. Cryptocurrency, retirement assets, real estate or land, life insurance. And then there's a whole separate category called life income gifts or split interest gifts. These are, at least at Kenyon, charitable gift annuities and charitable trusts. These are assets, these are instruments that can use most of the assets in the list above there, which provide a stream of income to either you or your loved ones, with a part that eventually comes to Kenyon. So these instruments can be really great for retirement or when thinking about transferring wealth to heirs. They are also, plan gifts can also be made using artwork and collectibles, even things like wine, livestock, or commodity futures. So like I said, belong to some of these national groups, and they're always talking about how to value livestock or these other things, which at certain land grant institutions, you can imagine that's like a serious source of wealth for a lot of their alums. But I always joke and tell people, while I love Kenyon and desperately want to help donors make an impact, I really don't want to figure out the valuation on a cow. So please don't try and give that to Kenyon. But if you must, then we'll figure it out together. But planned gifts is just the act of making a gift to charity, either now or in the future, using any asset other than cash. So that's the definition we're going to use through most of this process, although I will talk about estate gifts in particular throughout. So on this slide, basically what's happening here is that the Fed took, if all of us on screen took our net worth and put it all together, this is how the assets would break down. This is where all of us collectively assets would live. So 26% of our wealth lives in retirement plans. 26% is in publicly traded stocks and bonds, 24% in real estate, 12% in business interests, and 12% in cash or cash equivalents. So the reason I always share this slide is when I tell people, if we are only asking for gifts of cash, we are actually asking for the smallest piece of the pie and most people's asset mix. So if you think about your own life, I imagine there's less in your checking account than there is in your retirement account, for instance. So this is why this is such an important opportunity to discuss with donors and with for Kenyon to think about, because often gifts of impact come from sources other than cash. This pie chart is talking really just about deferred plan gifts. So these are gifts that are passing from a will or a trust. But this is the breakdown from our last campaign. The category of gifts, those deferred gifts, represent about a quarter of the total that have been raised in the last 3 comprehensive campaigns at Kenyon. So you can see how these gifts are allocated. The largest percent go to scholarship, but another pretty big chunk is capital projects, and then smaller allocations are academic programs, so like majors, professorships, that kind of thing, the operating budget, and then just the general endowment. In the most recent campaign, which just ended in June of 2024, that was the Our Path Forward campaign. That represented $77 million in estate commitments. So that's pledges from living donors who say, I intend to make a gift through my estate to Kenyon, valued today, this is that amount. It's not a binding commitment. We're not going to go after their estate if things change, and we'll talk about that more later. But through the campaign, they made those pledges. And then we actually realized $50 million in bequests. So that's when someone passes away and the assets actually transfer to Kenyon. So during the window of the last campaign, that was worth $50 million to Kenyon. And then we don't double count those. So if someone makes a pledge during Our Path Forward and then we later realize a gift, we're not counting that again. So just to be clear, these are sort of unique dollars in that sense, which is really exciting because that's a really significant amount of support that's coming to Kenyon through these opportunities. So there are 2 things I particularly love about working in planned giving. The first is that it involves my nerdy technical brain because I get to talk about tax consequences or assets. But the other thing I really love about planned gifts is they provide an opportunity for both collective impact and individual impact. We frequently hear this in our office, and it's frankly the worst thing I hear from donors, and that is, I can't give you $100 million, right? We had these big announcements through the last campaign of donors that made incredible once-in-a-lifetime gifts. I don't need you to give me $100 million. I mean, if you have it, we'll take it. But what we are asking folks to consider is making a gift to the college that is personally generous, whatever that means to you. So the totals on the screen are coming from gifts of all sizes, and they all matter because when we pull them together, they have a huge impact for Kenyon. So we promised you in the event invitation that we would discuss the impact that your class could have during their 50th reunion. So in this section, I want to talk about one class fund in particular. That's the Class of 1973 Scholarship Fund. This one was actually started well in advance of the class's 50th reunion, but that's a rarity. Most of them lately have been started during a class's planning period. But we do have a few classes that have done that. So this one was started in 1997, and since then, $1.5 million has been donated from 106 donors. Nearly $1 million, it was just under, came from 46 donors during their 50th reunion counting period. I looked at every single gift that has been made to this fund in advance of this presentation, and they range from $20 to $270,000. There are 2 total 6-figure gifts in this that represent this total, but the rest are less than that. So they are gifts from hundreds of dollars to maybe $5,000 or $10,000. In addition to the gifts that have been donated since 1997, 600,000 of that, an additional 600,000 has come from earned interest. So this fund is really the perfect example of the power of collective action. This is not a fund where we had some huge person like lead with this really, 7-figure gift or anything like that. This really is the class coming together to make this impact for Kenyon. What do they say on those infomercials? But wait, there's more. I was recently meeting with a member from the class of 1973 in New York, and she mentioned that one of the earliest recipients of the scholarship was this person that I've met and heard speak at Kenyon events several times. You may know her too. Shayna and Kyla can attest that I am easily a crier, but this alumna has made me cry at events because she talks really passionately about how much she loves her Kenyon experience and how she couldn't have come here without her support. Her name is Melzetta Moody, and she's currently a trustee for Kenyon. So I love that because think about what your class can do to both immediately support a student in their pursuits, but then think about who that student could become in the future. Like, it's rare we have this kind of runway to be able to illustrate what a class scholarship can do. But Melzetta has, gone on to lead her own really successful life, but she's also now giving back to Kenyon as a trustee, and helping to guide sort of the next generation for the college. I just think that's really powerful. Now, on the individual side, we also have support that comes from donors. So one fund that was established during the Our Path Forward campaign was a scholarship that was created from an estate gift. Bill was a member of the class of 1953. Now, this was a case where he did have significant assets. He passed away with no heirs. He wasn't married and had no children. He grew up as a child with a significant family wealth, but then also went on and established a business. So when he passed away, he left a significant percentage of his estate to Kenyon and created a scholarship in his name. 13 students benefit annually from his gift. So when we're talking about personally generous gifts, there's a wide range of what that looks like, and all of them have an important role to play for Kenyon. A word about the endowment versus the Kenyon fund and the operating fund. On the previous slide, I mentioned the amount of income that the class of 1973 fund has generated. So I just wanted to take a second to discuss the concept, and quickly differentiate between the endowment and the Kenyon fund. All planned gifts or estate gifts can go to either the operating fund or the endowment. For the endowment, you should think about it like an investment account. Gifts to the endowment are invested in perpetuity. So this is a concept that I'm not sure everyone is aware of, but as a nonprofit, when we sign up to establish an endowment, we are committing to a principle of prudent investment. And we are saying we intend to keep this fund in existence in perpetuity. That helps explain why we make certain decisions of what gifts we can accept and how we dedicate those gifts at Kenyon. So I use the example of, like, if we had a fund in hieroglyphics, we obviously don't teach that anymore, right? If the cavemen established this, we don't have that fund. To change an endowment, we have to go to the Attorney General of the state of Ohio and get that approved. So we're very careful about how we think about these funds and these kinds of gifts. We spend about 4 to 5% of the endowment value annually on operations or as restricted by the donor. So that could be for a scholarship fund, a professorship, a fund that supports athletics teams, anything like that. The minimum to establish a new endowment is $100,000, and that can be given over 5 years. In contrast, the Kenyon Fund you should think about as your checking account. We always ask donors to consider the Kenyon Fund before asking them to consider any other gifts. And the reason is because you have to pay your bills before you can invest in the future, right? So the Kenyon Fund is philanthropically the vehicle that we use to help pay the bills. And so it supports every aspect of the operating budget, whether it's faculty salaries, scholarships, et cetera, et cetera. So if you decide that you want to make, in particular, an estate gift to Kenyon, and you have a preference about whether this goes to the endowment or to the operating fund, the Kenyon fund, then that's a conversation we definitely want to have. If you don't have a preference, then the Board of Trustees would direct your gift where it's most needed at the time that it's realized. Think you hear often that Kenyon has a small endowment. Um, that's not the purpose of this event, but I thought that I would share this because I think it's information that folks maybe haven't seen. This is just a chart that is obviously comparing us to a number of our peer institutions, and this is the endowment value per student at Kenyon. So happily right now, we're focused on growing the endowment through an initiative called the Third Century Founders, where we're asking donors to make significant outright gifts to support the endowment. And that program is not about climbing this list just for the sake of it, but in very real ways, the endowment impacts the financial aid packages that we can offer, the cost of tuition, the salaries we pay for faculty and staff, and therefore both the recruitment and retention of all of those folks. So this is all really important to Kenyon's success, and we have room to grow here. Okay, so hopefully right now you have a sense of the kind of assets you can use to make these gifts and how these gifts can be pooled with others to support Kenyon, both now and in the future. So now we're going to transition to some of the impact from a donor perspective. What do plan gifts offer the individual? First, people choose to make these gifts because it affirms how important Kenyon is to the donor. It allows donors to make a more significant gift than they could or they feel comfortable doing during their lifetime. It's a good example for children, grandchildren, and other heirs, and it also solves problems. So I'm kind of air quoting problems here because I'll show you some examples and you'll understand. But these really do are situations where people do need to figure out how to proceed, and these can often be a helpful solution. So what I've done here are some anonymized examples. All of these stories are real, but I've changed either the names or the class years. And what's wonderful about playing gifts, but also tricky to discuss in group settings like this one, is it's a little bit of a decision tree situation. You can start with owning an asset that you want to use for good. If that, then what do I want it to do at Kenyon? Or you can start the other way and think, I really want to support this purpose, my class's 50th reunion. What's the best way for me to do that? Or like I said on the previous slide, you can be trying to solve a problem altogether different from those two things. So the bullets here are focusing on the how, but I'll also mention a sentence about where these gifts went, just so you have an idea of the wide variety of purposes that are out there. I asked Kyla and Shane, I shared my slides in advance of this, and I said, oh, I need to remember to take this out, this first one about getting a new job, because in the 50th reunion, most folks are out of that stage of their life, right? And they both said, no, don't do that. We hear so often that Kenyon grads fail at retirement. they start retiring, and then they decide that they want to get back into the workforce. So if you too have failed at retirement, then I will bring this up and say, if you get a new job, you can add Kenyon as a beneficiary on your retirement account, like Katie did. She allocated a small percent, 5% to Kenyon, and then left 95% for her family. Her gift was unrestricted, so she's allowing Kenyon to decide how to use that one. Mike from the class of 1984 took out a life insurance policy on himself and made Kenyon the beneficiary. Mike pays the annual premium, which is tax deductible. And then ultimately, the gift that we receive will be many times what he pays in premiums and what he feels like he could give outright to Kenyon. His gift actually supports IPHS, which was his field of study when he was here. Keith from the class of 2003 didn't think that he had the cash to be a leadership donor, but once he learned that he could make his Kenyon Fund gift using appreciated stock, he changed his tune. So he transfers the stock directly to Kenyon. In that way, he avoids paying capital gains on the appreciation that he's seen since he purchased the stock, and he's recognized as a leadership donor with his class. If Keith were in his 50th reunion cycle, he could also make a 5-year pledge this way, and the total amount pledged would count towards what the class has raised, even though he's spreading out the payments over multiple years. Greg from the class of 79 owns a rental house, but he doesn't want to be a landlord anymore. I'm actually hopefully not jinxing this. This one's actually in process, but all signs look good. So what he's going to do is put the rental home in a charitable remainder unit trust. We will sell the house, so then it's Kenyon owns the house, then Kenyon sells the house, and we put the proceeds from that sale into the trust. Greg will continue to collect an income from the sale of that asset through the remainder of his life. By doing that, he spreads out the capital gains liability over many years instead of realizing all at once. He lives in a state that would be particularly painful. He faces lots of other taxes, so that's an added bonus for him. And if he gifted the home to us without putting it in the CRUT, then that way he'd be sacrificing an income, but he'd avoid all the tax liability. So it's a pretty good deal for him because he still gets the income from that rental house without being a landlord. So for him, that's the problem he's trying to solve. He's tired of getting called out for leaking pipes and things like that. But he gets to keep the income from doing this. So when he passes away, whatever is left in that trust account will come to Kenyon, and his gift supports both a scholarship and a named space on campus. Donald from the class of 1972 is unsure about his future healthcare expenses, but he wanted to do something for Kenyon as part of his 50th reunion. So he made Kenyon the remainder beneficiary of his estate after making specific distributions for his loved ones. So basically what will happen in his case is he has, X dollar amount going to his partner, X dollar amount going to some nieces and nephews, and then if there's anything left after that, it will come to Kenyon. You could also do it the reverse and say, I want to give $50,000 to Kenyon for this purpose, and then everything else goes to my wife, my kids, whatever it might be. Oh, and his gift, Donald's gift went to his class scholarship for 72. Just two more examples. Mark from the class of 66 has to take his required minimum distribution from his retirement account, but he doesn't need the income and doesn't want to pay taxes on it. So most everybody on this call should be too young for this. You all should have to start taking your required minimum distributions when you're 73. But basically what happens then is you've invested in your IRAs, right? And you didn't pay taxes on that money going into the account. The IRS says, okay, it's been long enough that I haven't gotten our tax revenue from this, so you have to start taking money out of this, whether you want to or not. So when you find yourself in that situation, if you support Kenyon or any other charities, I would strongly encourage you to make those gifts. If you have an IRA specifically, to make those gifts by QCD. QCD stands for Qualified Charitable Distribution. And basically what happens is you call Fidelity and say, hey, I want you to issue a QCD to Kenyon. They send us the check directly, so you never touch it. But by doing that, you satisfy that piece, that required minimum distribution that the IRS wants you to take. So in Mark's case, he started a scholarship over a 5-year period using his RMD, using his QCD, and he will add to this later through his estate. But he decided he wanted to start it now, both for those financial reasons, but also because he wanted to see it in action while he was alive. So he's going to use the same account for philanthropy now, and again later when he passes away, the addition to the scholarship will come from his IRA rather. And then our last example, Robert from the class of 55 had significant wealth. He has 3 children who he did not want to disinherit, but 2 of the 3 are terrible at managing money. So he did not want to give them access to the kind of wealth that they would inherit because he didn't want them to blow it. His words, not mine. But so what he decided to do was to create trusts for them. So he established a charitable remainder trust for each child. So in that way, they get a significant annual income that they have access to and can spend how they please, but they can't touch the principal. So once each child passes away, the remainder comes to Kenyon and goes to a scholarship. Just a word on gifts of retirement assets. We want them. I have heard a couple times over the last few years that certain advisors are telling their clients, like a financial advisor or accountant, that, oh no, even though those are tax advantaged, you don't want to use those for philanthropy because they're hard for the charity to accept the gift. It can be tricky with certain providers, but we certainly have a process in place and know how to deal with that at Kenyon. So if you hear that from one of your advisors, I would just say we do want them. Maybe some nonprofits have a different perspective, but Kenyon certainly wants to make use of those assets. And it is one of the easiest gifts you can make. You do not need an attorney for these gifts. You just make a beneficiary designation. So when you think about it, if you get into your retirement account and it'll say, here's my primary beneficiary, here's my secondary beneficiary, you can allocate those by percentage. So you can include a percentage of those assets to come to Kenyon. At the federal level, many inherited assets receive favorable tax treatment for your heirs. So life insurance policies, stocks, bonds, real estate, all of those are tax friendly to whoever is going to inherit. But retirement assets, in contrast, can face some of the most severe tax treatment. So heirs other than spouses, and there's a few special exceptions now, will be taxed at their ordinary income rate. So if you have children that have been very successful, you could lose like up to a third of those assets in taxes. So the tax treatment remains the same as the original account. So if you didn't pay taxes coming in, they need to pay it coming out, and vice versa. If you paid taxes going in to like a Roth or something, then they won't pay taxes when it comes out. Kenyon has zero tax liability on these. So if you're thinking about any kind of philanthropic gift through your estate, this is the first thing that we suggest that you look at, because you will maintain the value in the greatest degree. So now I'm at frequently asked questions. These have come up throughout various points of my career. The one that shocked me the most, I won't lie to you, is I had a professor ask me, do I have to give my entire estate to Kenyon? And that honestly would have never occurred to me. But what he said was, when I read your literature and it says make an estate gift to Kenyon, that's what he thought, that we were asking for 100%. So since then, I need to just go ahead and say, no, that's not the case. You can give a partial allocation in any way. And we're happy to talk about that. We hear a lot of what if questions, like what if I need long-term health care and I need these assets? My answer to that is always many, the vast majority of plan gifts are revocable. So don't worry. You can tell Kenyon today, I intend, as part of your 50th, for example, I intend to make this gift today. And we understand that things can change, and that's fine. This does not become a binding liability on your estate. But if you share with us that you want us to do something specific, we will honor those wishes. So we have a documentation that we'll add to your alumni file where you can talk about how you direct a gift. But the paperwork that we use essentially says, it's my intention to make this gift today, but if circumstances change, and if in the future you realize a gift from any of these sources, bank accounts, will or trust, whatever it might be, this is what I want you to do with it. So that's how we work with donors to talk about that. But don't worry, we're very friendly, so we won't hold you to it forever if things change. The other question that we get in the what if category frequently is, what if I plan that I want to make a gift of X dollars and then it ends up being less? So the college is very generally using estate pledges for planning. We don't, in other words, like sign up like that's going to be a guaranteed source of income to satisfy debt or anything like that. However, if we are very loosely planning even on that, we're planning on those things based on a pool of these gifts, not your individual gift. So for every dollar that Kenyon documents where folks say, I intend to make a gift of this amount, we ultimately end up realizing about $1.50 from that pool. So in other words, some people are making an estimate and they're most often more conservative than what we actually end up seeing from those folks. So don't worry, that's not going to be the end of the day either. We appreciate the spirit with which you're making that gift, and it's not going to upend our apple cart if things don't turn out exactly how you planned. What if I want to designate my plan gift to something specific, or what if I don't? Both of those scenarios are okay. In the event that you don't want to designate for something specific, then the Board of Trustees is the body that makes the decision about how we'll use your gift. And then finally, why should I consider planned giving. We had plans to have an alumnus join me today to talk about why he had made his planned gift through his 50th reunion, but unfortunately his plans changed at the last minute. He couldn't be here. So I'm just going to jump one slide and share a quote from an alumna instead. Some of you may know Marilyn Marty Gentile from the class of 74. She said, "When I think of the people and places that have shaped my life, Kenyon is near the top. No place else has had the impact of Kenyon. It has shaped who I have become and how I see the world, how I think and respond. I've thanked Kenyon by volunteering over the years in the admissions efforts and giving. Now I've decided my last and lasting thank you to Kenyon will be including Kenyon in my will to show my gratitude to the college that has shaped me to this day." So I love this. I want to blow it up and put it on my office wall because I just so firmly believe that plan gifts offer an opportunity to share your gratitude for a place that matters to you and that you want to be around for another 200 years. When I have said before that when we're talking about estate gifts in particular, that's your last act on earth. And what do you want that to look like? Recently, I was reading a will from an alumnus, and his will allocates that several people will have the opportunity to go and choose books from his library. So it says X person gets to go take 20 books and, so on and so on. And I talked to you earlier about having two sides of my brain, right? Like this nerdy technical side. So that part of my brain immediately was like, no, why did he do this? Like it's making it so much work for this executor to arrange with all of these people and, right? Someone could go buy their own book. And then just as quickly, the part of me that really believes in the power of philanthropy and like how beautiful these things can be was like, he did this because he's communicating to these people. You mattered to me. You were important to me while I was here. We talked about books. It's a way for them to remember him and for him to honor those relationships. And I think it's really beautiful. So I would say to all of you, what do you want yours to look like? It's my privilege to work with folks like Marilyn and the alum that I just mentioned, and it'll be my privilege to talk to you if you want to further discuss how you might structure a gift to Kenyon that leaves your legacy here. So far, we have 550 people in our George Wharton Marriott Society. That's our Plan Giving Recognition Society for folks who have included the college in any kind of plan giving instrument. Some of you on the call are in that number, and I thank you from the bottom of my heart for doing that and for talking to us about it. If you have already included the college in your plans and haven't told us, I'd love it if you would just chat with us. We do not need to document it necessarily with us. If you don't want it to count or you don't want us to share the specifics, that's okay. But I really like to have these conversations because I want to make sure that we can accomplish your philanthropic goals. The example that I like to use is that some folks, for instance, might be inclined to create a scholarship for student athletes. Well, we are Division III in the NCAA, and that's prohibited. So if someone made a very well-intentioned gift with a lawyer and said, I want to gift a scholarship for student athletes at Kenyon, we would have to decline that gift because I'm not legally allowed to administer it. So there's very few things like that, but there are some that crop up. So that's always my nightmare situation, that someone won't have talked to us. But we can find creative solutions a lot of time to still accomplish what you want. And I can give you some alternatives to think about. And then I promise I will not hound you all the time after that if that's something that you want to talk about. And the other reason, of course, is that we want to count and recognize your generosity to the extent that you're comfortable. So as part of the as part of the 50th reunion process, we are, for the first time, talking with folks about not just a gift to the Kenyon Fund as part of your reunion, but also gifts to support endowment and planned gifts. So all of those types of gifts would count in your 50th reunion and the totals that we presented the class raised. This is just a screenshot of the documentation that we use to count those kinds of gifts. It is one page. It is very simple. We have a slightly altered version for retirement assets that asks what kind of gift it is, but otherwise it's just saying this is how the gift will come to Kenyon. This is an approximate value or a percentage. If you have a restriction or don't, that's what it's asking, and then you sign it. So I share this with folks just to say it's not as intimidating as you think it might be. If you prefer to, like some people don't even want to do this, they just send me a copy of their will and redact out things they don't want me to see, or they just send me a page that reflects Kenyon's interest. All of those things are fine. So where there's a will, there's a way for you to support Kenyon with a planned gift. I will pop my contact information up in case I can be helpful to any of you. We can also send this out by email when I'm done. But I'm going to end my slideshow so I can see all of you. Can you still see me? Oh, nope, sorry. I realized what I did wrong. There. Is that better?
Yeah.
Sorry, everyone. I was going to mess up the technical somewhere along the way, but that was pretty benign. I'll take it. So I'm happy to take individual questions. I see I have one in the chat right now. This says, does the endowment annual distribution cover all scholarships the school provides, or are some scholarships or tuition support provided through operations from annual operating revenue, including the annual fund? Yes, they are coming from both sources, the annual fund and from endowment. There's a growing need for financial aid. The enrollment landscape has changed pretty significantly. So if our vice president for enrollment was on the call, she could share a little bit about what that looks like. We lost a number of students late this year to some of the Ivy League schools. Yale in particular released names from the wait list really late that were committed to Kenyon. The other thing that happens, one of my colleagues was traveling and she went to a place to eat with some parents and they said, oh, this was about to be one of our students, pointing at the server. And it turns out she had committed to Kenyon. We were her first choice, but then Denison called her and said, we will offer you another $20,000 a year to come to Denison. And that was like, I think in May, really late in the process as well. So that's a concrete example of when we say that the endowment is small. That's one of the things that affects us. She really wanted to come to Kenyon and we didn't have any additional financial aid to support that. So yes, we do use the annual fund for scholarships. We also have operating scholarships as well. So endowed scholarships are certainly popular, but we have, for instance, the Women's Scholarship. You may have heard about that. The Kenyon Women Giving Back group sort of spearheads fundraising for that. There is both an annual scholarship and an endowed scholarship for women. So it's the same fund language, except one is being invested in perpetuity and we're using a percentage of the income. The other one is every dollar that's given to that is turned around and given back out to students. So I hope that answers your question. All right, another one just came in that said, for those of us approaching our 50th, will estate plan gifts made now count towards that 50th giving total? Yes, it will. So once you hit your 50th reunion, no, let me just say this differently. After your 45th, so once you complete your 45th reunion, any gift made from your 46th year through your 50th counts towards your class's fundraising total. And Shayna, you will correct me if I misstated that, but
Oh, you're right on. And that's all giving to the college. Yeah.
thank you. So that's gifts to all purposes, not just the Kenyon Fund, but to any endowed fund or anything like that.
Right. If anyone has additional questions, feel free to unmute yourself and ask in person. We're happy to have a conversation or discussion if anyone else has any thoughts or questions.
Was anything you wanted to know that I didn't cover, feel free to bring that up. I always want to make these as helpful as possible. I really appreciate that you've made time to talk to us. So,
hi, Kate and Shauna and whoever else is here.
Welcome.
I I arrived late and I apologize for that. I just want to know how you identified the people on this call, and were there others that didn't respond?
so we sent this invitation to anyone who we consider in the 50th cohort, is the way that we talk about it internally. So that's anybody now from the class of 1981 to 1976. Thanks, Shayna. I panicked at the end. I'm like, oh no, the math. So we invited that wider range. And in fact, we had more people RSVP who aren't on screen. So I think sometimes we have people do that because they know we're going to send a recording, and then that makes sure that they get it. So that was who was invited this time around.
Thank you.
Yeah, and this is, since it is being recorded, we're going to be able to share it out, like Kate said, to anyone who registered, but also we'll have it available to anyone to share with them afterwards.
Other way that this gets used, or this kind of information, is for class agents. So, or folks on the reunion committee, right? So sometimes it may be that they're not necessarily, an individual isn't necessarily a good candidate for a plan gift for one reason or another, an estate gift, but they have questions from classmates, and so they can help disseminate information that way too. So sometimes Molly Guttridge, our partner in annual giving, will share this with class agents. Jerry, go ahead.
Yeah, just wanted to follow on Denise's question, and this is for Brad. Denise and I, from 77, can we at some point, class agents, get a running total of where we are as in terms of fundraising after our 46th year? That will maybe help in our discussions about how we want to approach this for our upcoming 50th.
Yeah, so yeah, you will be hearing from me shortly. I'm working on the back end right now, getting some things organized for your class and getting ready to launch into committee planning with both everyone on this call from your class and who are currently class agents. So you'll be hearing from me shortly, and I'm excited to start working with you guys. And part of that planning includes sharing goals and where we're at so far and things like that.
And I understand that there's a planning meeting in the day after reunion weekend.
Yeah, that's right.
So on a Sunday, if I recall.
Yeah, so you'll be hearing from me about all of those details, and we'll start working together soon.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, thanks so much for that helpful presentation. I learned a lot from it. I have a question that's it's about endowment and taxes on endowments for colleges and universities. And so it's only tangentially related to planned giving. But when I think about which direction gifts should go for our class and for individuals, I've long been sort of haunted by the fact that Kenyon's endowment is on the low side, given its caliber in lots of ways, and cared a lot about that. And spent my whole career teaching at a big research university and really benefit from the strength of the endowment at my university and at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. And so I think a lot about this. I've lost track, given all the threats that there have been from the federal government about taxes on endowments. And I know some of those conversations have to do with the endowment per student and things like that. Can you help me understand, or all of us understand, what Kenyon thinks right now about whether their endowed funds are in line for the pleasure of new taxes of some sort? I don't know if that's the right way to ask it, but I'd appreciate hearing anything you want to share about that. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Brad. And I always struggle about these, so I'm glad you brought it up because I always see, of course, I'm following in the news all the things that you are, and I always wonder how much you all are paying attention, or is this just a case where I'm obsessed because this is what I do for a living, right? But yes, right now Kenyon is not on this at risk of being taxed for the endowment because our endowment size is too small. The long list that I showed you, actually, I think the vast majority of those institutions, if not all of them, will be safe because the last passed version of that legislation included an exemption for small schools. So it was about the number of students enrolled also. So there were a number of our peers who were going to face the tax just based on the endowment per student. But I think that the ultimate legislation involved providing them an exemption because they were smaller. And frankly, I think that the federal government's aim in that wasn't at institutions like ours. And there was like a famous example of, and I don't remember the name of the institution now, but it's some place in the Midwest that Jay Leno supports really generously because they have a car something specialty, but it's like, they happen to fall in this because they are so small that the endowment per student for them really would have been crippling. So some of those examples came out, and lobbying groups really were able to successfully avoid that. So in terms of the endowment, we do need to increase that, and we don't have any concerns about future tax in that regard, because I just think we've sort of navigated that hurdle and cleared it at this point. But I also would just say the word that Kenyon's endowment is small, not because we don't have as generous alums or supporters. It's been a conscious choice over the years to focus on a number of capital projects, which right now, frankly, is smart. Julie, our current president, talks a lot about other institutions that she's talking to the presidents, and they're in this situation right now of needing to build, like our version of the Lowry Center or Pierce, or right. And that's really difficult in the current environment, and it's a big price tag, right? Borrowing isn't cheap right now. Like in that sense, we are definitely benefiting. The other thing is we've just focused on the Kenyon Fund throughout our history. So in the previous two campaigns to this one, we would hire folks like me, who did major gift fundraising. We would hire them during the campaign and then lay them off when the campaign was done. And so we would continue supporting the Kenyon Fund, which supports operations, but we didn't continue to fundraise for the endowment. So our fundraising history looks like that, right? Where we would increase over a campaign and then drop off and focus on operating support and then pick it up again and drop it off again. So through our path forward, when we started that campaign, we made the commitment that we were going to keep folks on to continue fundraising for the endowment. So I suspect that you will see significant gains as a result of that. And then this, like I said, this Third Century Founders Initiative will be really important to helping a big infusion in the endowment in one fell swoop. Our goal is to raise $100 million over the next 2 years. And this initiative was not internally motivated. We had 2 trustees come to us and say, this is critical to Kenyon's future, and we want to help lead the effort. And so they really pushed us to consider that. So I'm happy to report today we have commitments of 50 million, and we just started fundraising in April. So we have another 50 to go, but it's a really good head start, and will be very helpful to Kenyon moving forward. So thanks for giving me a space to give a pitch, I guess, Brad, but.
Hey, we often hear the question about what types of funds are out there for Kenyon. Like, what are the options for me to give to?
Okay, so this is a really tough, I think that we need to, I'm going to advocate for this internally, that we create a list, because I do get this question a lot. We have funds, so you can support scholarships, for instance, but you can support scholarships for students studying a specific major. Like I said, we have the Women's Scholarship. We have scholarships based on financial need and certain numbers. We also have a number of funds that recognize important people in Kenyon's history. So like one that's really popular with certain generations of alumni is the Ed Pope Scholarship, for instance, or the Dean Tom Scholarship. Dean Tom was the Dean of Students for many decades at Kenyon. That's one that is very well funded by a number of people, again, making those small gifts. So those are some of the examples on the scholarship side. We also have funds for professorships, which are frequently named, and that supports faculty, again, different disciplines. So for instance, even in English, we have multiple professorships, and some support a specific area of study. So faculty that teach Shakespeare or creative writing, for instance. We have some that are for early career faculty and help them to sort of enhance their teaching skills or whatever it might be. So there's really a wide variety of funds that we support. Another newer construct, I would say, is we have funds that are excellence funds for athletics. So we have a number of folks who have wanted to support athletics teams, and so we can support the team without supporting the scholar athlete. So for instance, there's a men's lacrosse fund that was named in honor of Clay Caputi, who was a late 70s alum. He was a deke and played men's lacrosse. He was one of the early COVID deaths, very sadly. So his teammates came together and created a fund in his honor, and that supports the team's ability to travel and play better ranked lacrosse teams outside of our division. So there's a multitude of ways that we can think about philanthropy, and folks can have an impact in a number of ways. So if you have questions, anybody individually has questions about something they're interested in and want to know if something already exists, I'm happy to share that information with you by email or give me a call and we can talk through it. We literally have hundreds and hundreds of endowed funds. So that's why it's hard to just disseminate the information in large chunks, but I'm happy to help.
All right. Well, if no one has additional questions, we will wrap it up for this afternoon. But I just wanted to thank you all for attending and asking great questions. And Kate and myself and Kyla are resources to you to ask further questions and to have individual conversations. So don't be afraid to reach out. And we're happy to always connect. And the class of 77, you will be hearing from me shortly. And the class of 76 is already tired of me. So, so I'm looking forward to helping everyone celebrate and get things going for your 50th. And for those that aren't in either of those classes, I look forward to working with you in the near future. So,
Thank you all.
thank you.
Thanks so much.